The harvester's canvas. Elara hunched over her canvas, the cramped studio a furnace in the perpetual twilight of Neo-Detroit. Her brushstrokes were violent, mimicking the thrashing figures in her nightmare. A city swallowed by a writhing mass of tentacles, each eye a screaming human face. A low growl rumbled in her gut, not hunger, but a cold emptiness gnawing at her creativity. Another dud, she spat, flinging the brush across the room where it clattered harmlessly against a mountain of rejected canvases. Suddenly, a rap at the door. Elara flinched, fear a familiar, unwelcome guest. Opening the door a crack revealed a slick figure in a black suit, his face obscured by the brim of a wide-brimmed hat. "Elara Thorne?" he inquired, his voice polished like obsidian. "Who wants to know?" "The name's Silas. I represent a patron of the arts." A smile hinted beneath the brim, devoid of warmth. Intrigue battled with suspicion. No one visited Elara, let alone an art patron. Yet, desperation gnawed at her. "Come in," she sighed, stepping back. Silas sauntered in, taking in the squalor with a flicker of distaste. He gestured at a particularly disturbing painting, a portrait of a woman with hollow eyes feeding on her own reflection. Intriguing, fear, raw and potent. Elara watched him warily. "What do you want?" "Let's say your talent has come to our attention. We have a proposition." Silas explained TerroCorp and the fear trade, his voice devoid of moral qualms. He spoke of nightmares as a currency, harvested for the entertainment of the elite. "That's sick." Elara recoiled. Silas' smile widened. "Perhaps, but lucrative. You become a fear artist. We pay handsomely for your nightmares." He laid out a contract, a shimmering document that promised a life beyond penury. Elara's throat tightened. The nightmares had always haunted her, but now they could be a weapon against this oppressive world, or a cage trapping her sanity. Desperation gnawed at her resolve. She signed. The nightmares intensified. No longer fleeting glimpses, they became operatic horrorscapes. Elara became a conduit, channeling primal fears into grotesque tableaus. The harvester appeared, a skeletal figure with eyes like molten gold, feeding on her terror. Each visit left her drained, a hollow shell. Fame arrived, but not the kind she yearned for. Her paintings became a sensation in the decadent TerroCorp clubs, watched by masked figures who reveled in the simulated terror. Elara became a prisoner in her own mind, the line between reality and dream blurring. One night, in a nightmare fueled by paranoia, Silas' smile transformed into the harvester's. He confessed TerroCorp wasn't selling fear. They were feeding it to something ancient and malevolent, a monstrous entity lurking beneath the city, kept dormant by the constant influx of fear. Panic jolted Elara awake. The revelation chilled her to the bone. She had become a cog in a horrifying machine, feeding a creature that could consume them all. The guilt gnawed worse than the nightmares. Elara started researching TerroCorp, piecing together scraps of information from the fringes of the internet. She found a small group of rebels, the Dreamweavers, who fought the corporation. Reaching out was a risk, but silence meant doom. The contact point was a derelict library, filled with dusty tomes on forgotten dreams. There she met Kai, a young man whose eyes held the same haunted awareness as hers. He confirmed her fears. TerroCorp was awakening an ancient evil. Together, they planned. Using her nightmares, Elara would create a weaponized dream, a beacon of rebellion broadcasted into every connected mind. It was a risky gamble, but hope flickered in the darkness. The night of the broadcast arrived. Exhausted and terrified, Elara lay down, strapped to a neural amplifier stolen from TerroCorp. She painted a dream, a city rising against the harvester, a tide of defiance fueled by the victim's fear. The machine hummed to life, draining her. Images flooded her mind. A child screaming, a lover lost, the city crumbling. Then, a spark. The tide turned. The city fought back. The harvester recoiled. Elara woke to a chaotic scene. Sirens wailed, the city in an uproar. Dream and reality had collided. The people, fueled by her dream, stormed the TerroCorp headquarters. Elara stumbled out of the hidden room, the cheers of the rebellion echoing through the underground library. Kai rushed to her side, his face alight with a mixture of relief and awe. "It worked," he breathed, his voice hoarse. Images flickered across a holographic screen nearby. Chaotic news reports showing riots erupting throughout Neo-Detroit. People, eyes wide with a new kind of fear, were no longer passive consumers of terror but active participants in their own fight for survival. But amidst the chaos, a cold dread settled in Elara's stomach. The dream hadn't shown the Harvester's defeat, only its retreat. Where did it go? What did it have planned? Her worries were confirmed when a garbled message crackled through the library's ancient radio. It was a TerroCorp technician, his voice frantic. "It's awake. It's feeding. The shields are failing." The city's euphoria shattered. Real, raw fear gripped everyone as the ground began to tremble. A monstrous roar echoed from the depths, a sound that resonated with primal terror. The ancient evil TerroCorp had awakened was stirring. Elara knew they had a second fight on their hands, a fight against something far beyond nightmares. But this time, they had an advantage, the collective fear of the city, now channeled towards a common enemy. Kai explained a plan passed down through the Dreamweavers, a desperate gamble. They would use the remaining stolen amplifiers, strategically placed around the city, to create a unified dream. In Elara's mind's eye, a vision formed, a vast, shimmering barrier woven from the very fabric of fear. Not the fear that paralyzed, but the fear that empowered, the fear of a united city fighting for its survival. Days turned into a blur of frantic activity. Elara, fueled by adrenaline and a newfound sense of purpose, worked with Kai and the Dreamweavers to create the Dream Shield. They used Elara's paintings as anchors, their macabre imagery a twisted form of inspiration. The city felt like a coiled spring, tense with anticipation. Then the tremor intensified. The ground seemed to split open as a monstrous, squid-like creature erupted from the bowels of the city, its tentacles lashing out, buildings crumbling under their touch. Panic threatened to engulf Elara, but Kai's hand on her shoulder steadied her. As one, the amplifiers pulsed to life. Elara closed her eyes, picturing her dream, the city united, bathed in the golden light of defiance. The creature screeched, its monstrous eyes reflecting a flicker of fear. A shimmer filled the air, a wall of collective fear solidifying into a shimmering barrier. The creature slammed into the barrier, its tentacles writhing in frustration. The dream shield held, pulsating with the city's combined terror. The air crackled with raw power, a horrifying beauty born from desperation. The battle raged on, the dream shield straining under the creature's onslaught. Elara felt her energy waning, but the cheers of the resistance fueled her. Buildings became battlegrounds. Everyday citizens turned into makeshift warriors, their fear channeled into a weapon. Days bled into nights. Sleep became a luxury, every flicker of exhaustion a betrayal. Then, a turning point. The creature, weakened by the constant assault of the dream shield and battered by the resistance forces, began to slow. Terror twisted its monstrous face into a mask of desperation. The final push came at dawn. Using a stolen TerroCorp weapon, a beam of concentrated fear, the rebels struck a critical blow. The creature shuddered, a deafening screech tearing through the city. Then, with a final, earth-shaking tremor, it vanished back into the chasm from whence it came. Silence descended, heavy and surreal. Exhausted but exhilarated, Elara fell to her knees, the taste of victory bittersweet. The city bore the scars of the battle, but it stood, a testament to human resilience. The fear hadn't been eradicated, but it had been transformed, a necessary tool in their arsenal. As the city began to rebuild, Elara knew her role as a fear artist was over. The nightmares would likely remain, a constant reminder of the battle fought and the horrors witnessed. But she would continue to create, this time dreams of hope and rebuilding. A new future painted with the collective courage of a city that refused to succumb to fear. And somewhere, deep within her, a new kind of inspiration bloomed, fueled not by terror, but but by the resilience of the human spirit.